Hey everybody, welcome to Prep Talk Live, episode 103. With me, Casey. Tup is, I believe, running late. Oh my goodness, the camera is just so far off. Hold on, let's just adjust that. Okay, sorry about that. Tup is, I think, running late. I'm not sure. One of the fun life things that we have going on in general, kind of with both of us, is some weird work schedules lately. And so sometimes, even though we plan to be done by 5 or 5:30, occasionally we get snagged into a last minute late night meeting or something like that. I pinged Tup. He might joining us. If he does, hooray. And if he doesn't, we'll pick him up on the next round. Anyway, also, guys, I'm seeing weird things with my kind of keyboard, my laptop viewing, and my kind of PC as far as the video. So let me know in the chat if I'm stuttering a lot in the video or not. I'm trying to figure out if it's a Wi-Fi issue or if it's just lagging on, like if it's actually making the stream or not. But anyway, enough with the technical details. Enough with all of that. Welcome in, everybody. So tonight, a couple of things. One is we're reporting live from the frigid Northwest, where we got a kind of unexpected, I guess it was expected, but we never really expect these things to happen the way that the weather people tell us they're going to happen. So we got a lovely snow and ice storm last night and this morning. So school was canceled today. They've already preemptively canceled school for what was it? For tomorrow, which is that would be tomorrow. They canceled school for tomorrow. Hopefully it will thaw, but it kind of has brought into also when we talk about too many things to prep for. I felt like today was a really interesting example of that. Thank you, Chuck, for letting me know that it's stuttering but watchable. This is not. I don't know what the deal is and why it is stuttering, because the video over here looks really good, and then the video over here looks good, and then sometimes it doesn't. So I will continue to work on that for everyone who is still sticking with us. Thank you very much. But I've been dealing kind of in the last, I don't know, few weeks. It just seems like there's so much going on. And I felt a little bit kind of overloaded with kind of the prepping mindset that I think a lot of us, when we kind of start going the preparedness journey, it almost becomes a second nature for us to start thinking about things that happen, whether it's job things, if it's health things, if it's life things, kid things, family things, things on the news. You kind of take every piece of information and start working through it as if it is something to prepare for. It goes through that filter, which 10 years ago I didn't really have that filter. I wasn't thinking about things in that way necessarily. I would process the information, but I wasn't thinking about it as lots of long-term planning, or how might this affect something else, or what are the next 3 or 4 or 5 things that I should be prepared for in case something happens. And it feels like in the last couple of months, it's been just a steady barrage of news events globally, nationally, locally, even within schools and stuff like that. Things with friends, things with family, just all kinds of stuff. And it makes you kind of, at some points, feel overwhelmed, and then kind of take a step back and and almost kind of reset. And I know I've been seeing a lot of videos of people who are feeling overwhelmed with a variety of things. There's lots of layoffs happening. There's lots of new law things that are happening. There's lots of economic stuff happening. There's weather events that are happening. Like there's so many different things happening, and people can feel a little bit overwhelmed. And I am guilty of it, just like everybody else. I've spent several nights over the last few weeks, just kind of unable to get my brain to shut off and figure out like what do I need to focus on? What actually, if I'm focusing on all these little things, like what is happening? And so it's been a good reminder to me to kind of go back and think about why we have a plan, what we have a plan for. I've got the checklist PDF thing that's in the description. And I know Tup talks about it, but when you think about what your primary preparedness kind of motivation is it for weather? Is it for job loss? What is that thing? A lot of times when you're preparing for that thing, you're also preparing for a lot of other things you just haven't thought of. They're the secondary things. The fact that you have a generator for a hurricane means you also have a generator for a blackout or a winter storm, or a friend of yours that's having an issue with their electricity, like they just had a breaker box explode or something, and they need a generator. Like you're having those equipments and plans for one thing definitely makes it a lot easier to kind of fix a lot of the other things. And I think sometimes we can get lost in thinking about things in a silo of, well, I have this thing or this plan for this eventuality. And in reality, it covers a lot of eventuality. So I think I've been spending a lot of time trying to kind of think through that, going back to the original plans. As my therapist calls it, slow thinking. And just really kind of my initial reaction is to think about things really quickly, to try to really forecast out what I think the outcomes might be, and then try to work backwards from that. And you don't always need to do that. So that's one of the things that I've been working on, trying to figure out. I see a lot of people in the chat talking about resets, and kind of taking pauses and filters. And I think that is 100% correct and universally true. I know as us in kind of those of us who have been in the prepping community for a little while, and I'm still relatively new. I mean, I've only been doing this for a few years. You get to a point where it can become overwhelming if you aren't able to layer in those filters and really think through it a little bit. So that was kind of what I was wanting to talk about tonight, was just the kind of general anxiety that I think can come from being on a preparedness journey, from going through these times. And even, I'm not even sure necessarily that more things are happening now than maybe have happened previously, but because of social media and 24-hour news, and like it is just bombarding everybody with events that seem like they must be reacted to. And I think it's important to remember that not everything needs to be reacted to. Sometimes it's okay to wait a beat and then react. And I say this because that is a thing that I'm working on right now. I used to, in the morning, I used to get up and go downstairs and walk on the treadmill for a little while. And I would start by turning on CNBC and watching kind of the market updates of what was going on with the stock market, what was going on with international news and everything else. And I liked that initially because I felt like I was getting a jump on the day. I have stopped doing that now. And instead, I've started working with the Headway app, which is kind of summaries of books. So I am not a very quick reader. I don't really love to sit down and just read books. I don't know if it's an ADHD thing. I don't know if it's just attention thing. I don't know if it's just, I don't know. I can read nonfiction. I can read that sort of stuff. But I have lots of friends that enjoy the fantasy books and the dragons and the sci-fi and all that sort of stuff. And I have no interest. I'm like, let me watch the movie, let me watch the show. The Headway app takes a lot of books that are nonfiction, self-help books on parenting, on finances, on health, on leadership and business, and just all kinds of different topics, and condenses them down into like 15-minute summaries with key points. And so I will go down in the morning, and now on the treadmill, I'm listening. I can listen to usually 2 books while I'm on the treadmill, and get through kind of the key points and think about the learning side of getting prepared for the day, as opposed to launching in the morning with all kinds of social media and all kinds of that sort of stuff. So for anybody who's looking for a change in kind of just the amount of information, I think we also get used to absorbing information, even if we don't intend to. So being a little more mindful about kind of how you're replacing that information intake, whether it's through just kind of putting social media on hold, or whether it's about being more more, what's the word? Not intent. It's kind of like intent. You know what I'm talking about. Being more mindful of what you're doing that and how you're doing it. That has, I think, been pretty helpful for me over the last couple of weeks of just kind of feeling like I was getting a footing back. Because when there's so many things happening, like today, it was, oh, we have plans for the weekend, and there's stream, and we have all the things. Oh, and by the way, now it's snowing, and we're canceling doctor's appointments, and we're shifting everything around, and making sure that family that lives, we have some family that lives on a hill, we have some family that lives alone. Like, okay, does everybody have what they need? Are we going to be running around and dropping off supplies? Is everybody good? Like, those are the sorts of things where if you can kind of find a way to compartmentalize the noise, I think it makes it a little bit easier to actually manage the key important things. Yeah, Kayla was talking about don't react to all of it 100%. And I think for us, especially when you are in kind of the preparedness world, I mean, that is kind of our superpower a little bit, I think, is hearing information, gathering information, trying to be informed, trying to take that information and turn that into a plan and a strategy and tactics to minimize any perceived threat, damage, loss, anything like that. And so it just kind of happens instinctually at a certain point. We're teaching our son to drive right now. He got his permit, and he hadn't driven for a couple of days. He drove for about a week, and he didn't drive for a couple of days. Then he got in the car and he was driving. He was like, Dad, it really is kind of like riding a bike once you've done it a little bit. And I think with preparedness, it's a very similar thing. Like, you get information, you hear about what's going on, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I need the checklist just formed in your brain of all of the tasks that you need to do and all of the things to check. When it's one thing, you can really kind of manage that. But when you're being bombarded by 5 or 6 or 8 different things before 9 a.m., like, it can be a bit overwhelming. And it can make you feel like you're way behind, and it can make you feel like you're lost and on rocky footing and all kinds of things that are not helpful for just kind of moving through the rest of your day in the world. So I want to just kind of throw that out there. I see if that resonated with people. I feel like it has resonated with some other friends I've talked about. And it seems like the chat crew who's here is also agreeing with that. So it's always good when you have an idea and then you find out you're not really crazy. Like, you're like, am I crazy for thinking this? Chuck gets up at 5 a.m. Yeah, the 5 a.m. thing is it's an interesting situation. For me, I've had a client last year where we had meetings with a team from Europe as well. And so that's kind of the stand-up meeting was at 6 a.m. my time. And so I was also, we were doing a lot of carpool stuff and everything. So I would get up at like 4:45 and work out and then be available to go to that meeting and then help with carpool if I needed to. This year, the carpool situation is much different, so I don't necessarily need to worry about that. But I am again working with that same client, and we're back to the 6 a.m. meetings. So the 5 a.m. morning time, especially as somebody who is a pretty consistent night owl up until the last probably 5 or so years. Like I would stay up if given the opportunity. Like I would love to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning and just work on stuff. Like that was when my brain would really go from like 10 until like 2 in the morning. Was great. The kids were asleep. My wife was asleep. I could just work on stuff and not feel like I was missing out on things. But then as age has started to get in, I was like, I don't know that I can do 2 a.m. anymore. And now like I'm going to bed at like 8:30 and I'm like, what is happening? But yeah, the 5 a.m. getting up before everybody else has been a bit of a game changer in some of the planning and just kind of how I feel in the morning. Yeah, 6 a.m. meetings are very rough. It's kind of one of those interesting things in when I started out my career, I worked for a company and it was started off as like a U.S. position and then it morphed into a global position. And so I've kind of gotten used to having to have early mornings to meet with European teams, staying up, having evening meetings with teams in Asia. And then you kind of go off and maybe you work with a different client and you don't have to worry about that anymore. Maybe it's just East Coast, West Coast. So it's more of a morning meeting and, that's fine. But with sometimes when you get back to those early meetings, oh my goodness, it definitely takes a toll, I think, after a while. And then you kind of get into the rhythm and you kind of grow that morning callus, as it were, and then it doesn't phase you as much. But that first week, holy cow! Like the first 3 days, I was super excited. I was on it, and like Thursday, oh my goodness, I could not. So we're in better shape now, but it's definitely an interesting scenario. So yeah, so that was kind of, I think, the what I was going to talk about, and then always, of course, the wonderful snow that we have going on. I didn't have much more of a plan. I was planning on having Tep here, and we were going to chat about that a little bit. Oh, I know the other thing. I was like, I knew there was something else I was going to talk about. And I'm bummed that Tep isn't here because I would love to get his opinion on this. But to the point of filtering through the prepping and everything else, I have found, at least for myself, over the last, I don't know, couple of months or so, I've realized that sometimes I have the ability to focus on the plan more than the kind of emotion behind the plan. Like I'm real good at figuring out all of the pieces of the puzzle that need to get happen and everything else in an emotional situation. But sometimes that means that I'm not necessarily always focused on the emotional part of whatever is going on. And today was one of those days where the snowstorm, I had work things going on and everything else. There was a lot going on in my head. And my daughter wanted to go out in the snow, obviously. She's 12. She wanted to go out in the snow. She was out in the snow. And I was like, it's so cold. There's no way I'm going out in this. My son and wife were watching a movie on Netflix. Okay, fine. And I was in my office working on stuff. I'd had a couple of meetings and I just had this flash of like, at a certain point, there will be a last snow day. And, we've already had a few last that you don't really know they're the last until you realize that they don't happen anymore. But this might be, especially in the Northwest, because we don't get a ton of snow days. We haven't for a long time, then we've gotten a few in the last couple of years. So this could be the last snow day that we get for a while. At least until maybe the kids aren't interested in playing this anymore. And so I had to kind of take a minute to be like, okay, this is one of those times where I'm going to set the plans aside. Like I could do more paperwork. I could work on more lists. I could do, but like I need to just put out my out of office for an hour, go put on my snow pants. We had a big family snowball fight in the backyard at 11 o'clock this morning or whatever time it was. And just really enjoy those memories. And I say that because I think a lot of times I'm not alone in when there's so much going on in the world, there's so much going on, especially if you're thinking about things for your family and kids and all this other stuff. It becomes really, really easy for your brain to just get kind of overloaded with tasks, with ideas, with that sort of stuff. And it feels like that is the priority, that those tasks, that those to-dos are more important than anything else, because you're trying to set up a system, you're trying to protect people, you're trying to do all that stuff. You're doing it for all the right reasons. But I had to take a moment today to just be like, this is why I'm doing all of this stuff. Like, this is why we have water jugs and why we have, med kits and why we, have all these plans, is to protect these people. And if I'm so focused on doing all of the other stuff and forget to spend time and value the time with those people, I have all the plans in the world, but like I can't make another snow day. That has to be a priority. It has to be something you plan for. So all that to say, for all of us who are working on our plans and planning and prepping and planning and all that sort of stuff, not only do I think now is an important time to take a step back just to filter the information that you are preparing and planning for, but also it's important to remember why you're doing it, and to not let the overload and the fire hose of information and everything else make you feel so panicked and anxious and focused on figuring out the puzzle that you don't remember to spend some time with the people that you're solving the puzzle for. So yeah. So, and again, that might just be me. Again, like, I know I'm quirky, and I've got my things. I go to therapy every week. Therapy is wonderful. By the way, if you're a prepper, if you're a preparedness person, I highly recommend going to therapy, because likely you are an anxious person and there's a lot going on, and having somebody to talk to about it can make you feel way better about a lot of things and help you focus. But if you're anything like me and you're processing and you're focused and you feel like there's so much going on, make sure that you are kind of, even if you have to do it consciously, make sure that you're taking time to focus on the reasons why you're doing all the prepping. Because getting another med kit is great, but you can get more med kits. You can't always get more snow. So anyway, so that's what I got for today. I wasn't sure if Tup was going to join or not, but it appears that he is still in his meeting. I am going to try to figure out what is going on with the Wi-Fi and the video streaming and all that other stuff. But I'm going to go, I think, try to figure out what movie we're going to go watch tonight, because the kids don't have school tomorrow. And our youngest has been, we've been doing a little bit of some behavioral stuff with her for her OCD and ADHD, and she has been on an amazing streak the last several days. So we're doing a little bit of a reward for her tonight, to kind of reward her for really kind of making big progress over the last week or so. So I think I'm going to go run up and do that. I invite you all to do something similar in that vein. Normally we talk for between a half an hour and an hour. So we're giving you like between 5 minutes and 35 minutes back. So take that time to to do that. Chuck's therapist would need therapy after me. I often joke with mine. I'm like, I don't know who you talk to after you talk to me. But good luck with that, buddy. But anyway, yeah, therapy is one of those things I didn't really fully understand how helpful it would be in so many different areas. And I cannot recommend it, especially if it's covered by insurance. A lot of insurance plans will cover, talk therapy and that sort of thing. So, helping with some of the anxiety that can be just inherent in being a preparedness person. We are doing it because we see that there is something dangerous that we are trying to avoid. Whatever that threat is, job loss, natural disaster, social unrest, like whatever that is, we physically see that as a threat, mentally see that as a threat. And we are trying to constantly figure out how to minimize that. And having somebody who can help kind of give you some tools and things to help kind of calm your mind down a little bit and focus on what's really important, I think is invaluable. So if anybody has questions about it, more specific, like anybody has questions about it and they want to like send me a direct message or something, I'm happy to talk about it more specifically. I think it's a really, really wonderful tool. But I also know that it's not always comfortable for people to feel like they can talk about it. So if it's the sort of thing that you've been curious about and you wanted to talk about it, but you don't want to do it in chat or whatever, like feel free to send me a DM or something. I'm happy to talk about it. But anyway, all right, I'm off to go see what movie and cookies we're gonna make or something like that. I heard there was hot dogs and Doritos happening maybe. So we are fully into snow day, food, behavior, activities, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go join. I will see you guys next week. I'm not sure. I think Tup is supposed to be here next week. I think we're good for Wednesday. At least that was where we were scheduled. But I'm not 100% sure. So we'll try to at least have one of us here on Wednesday and hopefully both of us. And hopefully I will not be doing the Max Headroom impression while I'm doing it. So anyway, have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday evening. Have a wonderful weekend. And we will see you in the next